Konnichiwa, and welcome to episode 46 of the Leadership Japan podcast. And I am your host in Tokyo, Dr. Greg Story, president of Dale Carnegie Training Japan. And much more importantly, you are a student of leadership, highly motivated to be the best in your business field. If you would like your own access to 102 years of the accumulated wisdom of Dale Carnegie Training through free white papers, guidebooks, reports, training videos, blogs, course information, plus much, much more, then go to japan.dalecarnegie.com. And today we are going to listen in to a talk on the Dale Carnegie Brand.
Keep this brand 100 years young, current, and relevant to so many people. Greg is a 28-year veteran of Japan. He started on the academic field, and since then he expanded his career in a variety of fields, including consulting, trade representation, international diplomacy, retail banking, and people development. It is really for FCC to have a man of these diverse backgrounds to be the featured speaker of this evening. And he is scheduled to fly to Brisbane tomorrow to receive an award for his long-standing international contributions and distinguished career from his alma mater. And during his busy schedule, he managed to find the time to come to us to give us his insightful story. So please welcome Greg Story. And Greg, please give us your compelling story. Thank you.
So we'll just do a sound check. We sound like we're good. Thank you very much, Kay. And it's my second time actually to address the FCC. Last time I was here, I was representing the Shinsei Bank. And that was a challenger bank talking about how we're taking on the big boys and girls in the retail banking market. And today I'm going to talk about Dale Carnegie. And the brand we're talking about here is a 100-year-old brand. And it's had many, many trials and tribulations to get to this point in time. And it has succeeded, and there are some pretty clear reasons why it has succeeded. I'd like to talk about those tonight. But usually, most of the presentations we get at FCC, and I've been coming here since 2001 to FCC meetings, they're normally about product usually, so you actually see lots of product shots. Well, tonight, you'll see from the slides, it's all going to be about people. Everything you'll see tonight is basically going to be shots of people, because that is what we do. We are in the people development area. Dale Carnegie was in the people development area. So it's very much around those soft skills that we have. And I mentioned in the advertisement, I should say, for this, that one of our biggest fans is Warren Buffett. And I'm going to go to a couple of videos to talk about Warren Buffett, because as I mentioned, it's extraordinary to get someone of his fame and caliber to go out recommending your brand. And we could never afford to pay Warren Buffett. How much do you have to pay Warren Buffett to represent your brand? I mean, forget it. Who can afford Warren Buffett? Nobody. And the only brands he recommends are his own, that he actually Hathaway owns himself, except for Dale Carnegie. And we'll just hear a little bit from Warren tonight on why that actually is.
Persuasion. That's the next remarkable skill of Mr. Buffett, handling people.
My mom says when he was in his 20s, he was reasonably socially adept. I mean, like in large crowds, he'd much rather not be there, and he just would rather be reading and working on his stuff.
So Buffett learned how to deal with people from self-help guru Dale Carnegie.
I was terrified of public speaking when I was in high school and college. I couldn't do it. I mean, throw up and everything. So I took this Dale Carnegie course, and as soon as I finished it, I was 20 years old. I went out to the University of Omaha and I said, I want to start teaching because I wanted to get up in front of people and make sure I didn't lapse back.
Carnegie promised anyone could win friends and influence people if they did things like giving people aspirations to live up to instead of nagging them, and using their first name all the time.
I actually have the diploma in the office, and I don't have my diploma from college. I don't have my diploma from graduate school, but I've got my Dale Carnegie diploma there because it changed my life.
There's a critical phrase. It changed my life. And that is the power of this brand. And to have an advocate like this, and you talk about the diploma, well, let's have a look, see if we can find the diploma, because that's an interesting story too. Bring this up.
Warren Buffett is one of the richest men in the world. His company, Berkshire Hathaway, owns or has a stake in over 70 businesses, such as Coca-Cola, IBM, and American Express.
But this is no ordinary billionaire. He's giving 99% of his wealth to charity, and he thinks rich people should pay higher taxes.
Tonight, you'll see where Buffett's mega deals are done. His private office in Omaha, Nebraska. It is as unconventional as the man himself. What are the other photographs in this room that represent something important to you?
Well, they almost all represent something important. I mean, over here is my certificate from the Dale Carnegie course I took when I was 21. I was terrified of public speaking. I couldn't do it. I couldn't get in front of a crowd and give you my name. And finally I spent $100 and I took this course. And not only did I get so I could talk in front of people, you know, I can't stop talking in front of people. And during that class, I should mention, Charlie, I proposed to my wife during that. So if I didn't get my $100 for that class,
So, you know, you can imagine, he is one of the most successful investor in the world, going around on his own bat, talking about Dale Carnegie and the difference it made. That was one from the BBC, and then one recently this year in February from CBS. And so I've seen a number of these, obviously. Why is that? Why would he say that? It changed my life. Now that is a difficult proposition for any brand to be able to say that. Most of the things we use in our daily life, brands, don't change our life. And you see the certificate there in the number 8. That number 8 represents a prompt to me to remind myself there are 8 million fellow graduates, apart from Dale Carnegie, who've also had that big change in their life. So the brand for us lives in the person. It's not on a shelf or on display, it actually lives in the person. So it's quite unique and special. And we think about, as I said, yesterday was exactly the 100th anniversary of Dale Carnegie, starting 1912. Think about this. Dow Jones, 1912, has got a lot of companies listed. Today, how many of those companies do you think that were listed in 1912 are still on the Dow Jones now? Any ideas? Who thinks there's maybe 10? 10?
A couple.
10? Yeah? A couple? 1. General Electric.
No.
Lehman Brothers, gone. Arthur Anderson, gone. General Motors, bankrupt. Kodak, bankrupt. Yet here's one guy started on 125th Street in Harlem, in New York, the YMCA, teaching his one little course, one guy teaching one class. And yet, he's been able to take the company through 100 years of evolution. There's got to be something very fundamental about that that makes it work. And again, it comes back to that people component. This book, Topics for Talks and Schedule of Sessions, it says, effective speaking, personality development, and influencing men in business. That was an internal document that he'd worked on himself. The turning point, though, was this book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, published in 1936 by Simon & Schuster, which instantly became not just a bestseller in America, it became a global bestseller. It became a runaway success bestseller. And in the publishing world, there are two fantastic long sellers. When you think about it, most books don't sell for that long anymore. The turnover is quite high. You think about the business books you know, how many are actually a long seller? Not that many. The Bible is a fantastic long seller, and this is the other fantastic long seller, his book. Because you think about it, 1936 until now, it's still constantly, consistently finishing in the top 10 business books in virtually every language around the world, because it's become timeless and universal in this application. So this changed a lot for Dale Carnegie. And also the title, very interesting, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's kind of a bit of a cliche in English. It's almost like a parody at sometimes, you look at it. But the constant idea was, well, think about it. We all like to do business with people we like. That's fine. What makes you like them? Why would someone want to do business with you rather than somebody else? And this is a dilemma that Dale Carnegie found that people were facing. And he came up with some ideas. You all distributed the golden books with these principles in there. They were developed to help people become better with other people. And the book is basically the explanation of all those principles. The other part is about influencing people. Well, we want to be persuasive. We want people to buy our product, idea, concept, direction, whatever we're advocating. And he found ways to help people to become more persuasive. That's why it still resonates. When you read the book in English, it's still very quaint. And most of the examples he is giving, those companies are no longer there, and those people have already passed on. But there's something charming about the freshness still of what he's written that lasts. And this really, in 38 was translated into Japanese. It's become a bestseller. 9 million copies of this book have sold in Japan. That's a phenomenal amount of copies of people who've had this. And for Japanese business people, they say to me, the two Bibles in Japan, Drucker on management and Carnegie on people skills. And that is a very consistent thing I hear from senior Japanese business people to be very successful. So, superstar status overnight. One moment, he's like a J.K. Rowling, writing a novel on the kitchen table at home. And the next minute, boom, she's instantly well-known all around the world. Same thing, but on a much bigger scale, because in those days, there weren't the mega superstars in volume like we have today, because you think of the media expansion today. Back then, if you're on national broadcast, NBC, that is a big, big deal, because very, very few people are doing that. And he was such a star that he could pull that type of audience. And this is Carnegie Hall. Have a careful look at this. This is the photographer couldn't fit the whole thing into the shot, so this is only one half of Carnegie Hall, and they're packed up. I don't know how many floors this thing goes to, but they're packed to the rafters, as we say, as an idiom in English. They're packed to the top, and that's to hear him speak. It was that type of superstar status that he had instantly attracted. And this is in Buenos Aires. 500 people to a public preview. We run public previews today. Trust me, I'd love to have 500 people come to a public preview for Dale Carnegie. But back then, that was the sort of audience that they could pull. This is no Dale Carnegie there. This is the people running the Dale Carnegie Training in South America, in Buenos Aires, in Argentina, who are attracting 500 people to come and hear about his principles and how it works. So phenomenal take-up. Everywhere he went, this is actually on a ship, he's on a cruise, can't escape, he's got to talk. So he's a guy who, like a lot of people, spent a long time becoming an overnight success. From 1912 to 1936, he was not nationally known. He was known in the training world, he was known in the business world as a trainer, personally taught 5,000 classes, but he was not a brand name. And then he came out with this book a little bit later. Because what he discovered was, I'm teaching people really grow their confidence, grow their leadership skills, grow their communication skills, grow their people skills. But when they're under a lot of tension and stress, it's all starting to break down. And it's a very sad comment that 100 years ago, the problem he's facing and the problem we're facing today around stress and depression, etc., is not that different. 100 years ago, if you had minor amounts of stress, you just persevered and carried on. If you got really highly stressed and you became sick, then you went to hospital or possibly an institution. 100 years later, what happens? If we have minor levels of stress, you just carry on. If you have higher levels of stress, you get pharmaceuticals. But then and now, there's not much in between. This was a book written for the in-between, so you could self-medicate in a way through taking different principles that he devised by talking to people about how they dealt with stress, putting them into a book to help us control ourselves before we get to a state where we need pharmaceuticals or hospitalization. And then this book, again, became very, very powerful in building his brand. And so this is the Japanese version, Michiwa Hirakiru, also great bestseller. And this country certainly needs some help in the stress relief department. In fact, we have some representatives from the Acumen organisation who published the British Chamber Journal. In the next online bulletin, e-bulletin, I've written an article on stress management, and it's referring to some of the principles in this book because, and I start talking about if you've ever been standing on a platform in the morning wondering why your train is late, there's a reason for that. Someone's killed themselves on the train track. And there's basically 3 suicides a day going on in Japan. So there's a lot of help needed. So this is not necessarily an idea that we've actually fixed. So Dale Carnegie grew up classic in Missouri, and Will's from Missouri, right? And he grew up poor. He grew up in a very poor farming family, the classic rags to riches American dream success story. And then his book's now been published in Japan in different volumes. This is the latest book, just come out recently. The Japanese version of this book will be released next month, called Hito Gakasu 2. And so in English, it was How to Influence People in the Digital Age, which is trying to take what he was talking about and take it to this current era and the sort of different interactions that we face. So Dale Carnegie passes away in 1955. Now, if your brand is built around one man, what do you do when the one man's gone? And there's no successor to the brand name because his daughter was only a child, a young child, 2 or 3, maybe 4 years old when he passed away. And because it was a licensed business where people around the world would have the Dale Carnegie license, they called them sponsors in those days, and they would run the business. There was no natural successor to Dale Carnegie. So the likelihood was going to end right there. That would be the end of it. Except for a very powerful and important person, his wife, Dorothy. Now, Dorothy was his secretary, and she became Mrs. Carnegie. And on his passing, into her office came some of the more senior guys in the organisation who had their own licensed areas. They were running the Dale Carnegie Training business there. Go back to 1955. I mean, today we can hardly believe it, but in 1955, no one thought that a woman could run a company. I used to watch some episodes of that TV series Mad Men, set in the 50s, and I remember an episode, there's a particular episode where, same thing, the woman was the daughter of the father who started the company, and they rejected her ideas because she was a woman. And when you look at it, you laugh because it's so ludicrous. But back in 55, that was reality. Now, Dorothy was a very strong person. She kicked those guys out of her office, said thank you very much, and she went out and she hired clever people. She hired experts in different areas to work for her. And the difference between Dorothy and Dale Carnegie was not a particularly business-oriented guy. He was an artist. He loved training people. He personally taught more than 5,000 classes. Think about that. He developed this idea, and he pioneered it, and he saw it grow, and he saw it grow immensely in North America, particularly in South America. And he loved the art. He loved what it did because he could see people grow. He could see it changing their lives in front of his very eyes. And I don't know if there's any engineers in the room. Any reformed engineers or engineers in this room? Pretty hard to pull an engineer in an FCC meeting. Oh, we got one over here, thank you. Thank you very much. Now, son, thank you. He loved training engineers. Why? Because they're so hopeless. They were absolutely hopeless in people skills and communication. They were smart people, they were technical people, they were very, very good in their field on their own. But when they got promoted, they had to deal with managing people, they couldn't do it. They came in droves to his training because they discovered they had a facility lack that he could fill. And so he was the artist. And he liked engineers particularly because in one series of sessions, he could just see like bamboo growing, getting better and better every week. So Dorothy is really, she is the soul of the international network. Now there are 298 offices in 86 countries around the world. Now just think about those numbers, 298 offices in 86 countries around the world. This is a multinational company of very big proportions. How many multinationals do you know that have got 298 operations on the ground in 86 countries? Not so many. Now, we don't think of Dale Carnegie as a multinational, but it is a massive multinational by any comparison. And 90% of the Fortune 500 companies are using this training. Now, if it didn't work, trust me, they wouldn't be using it. And if it wasn't current, trust me, they wouldn't be using it. And you don't get the most powerful corporations in America adopting this training unless they see a return on investment, an ROI in this. And so he founded something in 1912, which I doubt he could have imagined would be at the stage where it is today. I don't think he could have imagined 86 countries. He probably didn't think about 86 countries. He probably thought more in terms of the soul of what he was teaching. Before he passed away, 2 years before he passed away, Harry O'Han was one of his early trainers and disciples. And in fact, he's so unbusinesslike. Can you imagine this? He gave half of America to one guy. Half of America. He said, there's the line down the middle. Harry, that's yours. Take care of it for me, please. Just before he died, he visited Harry O'Han in Los Angeles. And he said, he knew time was coming up for him. And he said, Harry, keep my dream alive. Because he knew he wasn't going to be around. That's the artist, not the businessman. But today, thanks to Dorothy, it's become a global operation. And that global strength is very important. We talk about the brand. The brand is whatever it is in that country. The brand is whatever it is in that culture. The brand is whatever it is in that language. The brand is whatever it is in the delivery. And so when we get to convention every year, it's a massive UN-style operation. People all around the world, all of that expertise, all of that exposure coming together in the one place, refreshing the brand constantly. We are ISO 9001 certified, which is very strict in terms of what they expect us to keep doing, in terms of polishing our delivery component, which is the training. And so Mr. Crom here in the middle was a previous president of Dale Carnegie, part of the family from Dale Carnegie's previous marriage. And so it is very much a family business as well. And I'll give you a little episode. My first opportunity to go to convention was to Miami 2 years ago. So I don't know anything. I've just, I bought the company, but I didn't work in the company the first couple of years because I was running the National Australia Bank. And then I got a chance to come into the company. I go to the first convention. I'm the new boy. I don't know anybody. And I'm at one of the functions, and I'm chatting with Dorothy Dale Carnegie, the daughter. Like, what an honor, And she's chatting with this guy, and he's got a moustache, and he's wearing a Hawaiian shirt. He's got long hair and a ponytail. I think, this guy doesn't quite look Dale Carnegie to me, But she's very friendly with him. And then I was talking to him later, and I found out that he actually is the guy that organises the convention. So all the cameras and the sound gear and all the sort of backstage stuff. His company does that. They've been doing it forever. And he said, I really like your organisation. I do this every year. I don't make any money out of it. It's always the last job in the year, but I always like to come because you people really walk the talk. I'm thinking, what's he talking about? I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, look, you guys actually follow the principles, You actually do what you say you should do. I thought, yeah, well, what do you mean? So, well, look, you know, I do this for a living, so I'm going to conventions all over the place. The top motivational speakers are my clientele. I'm organising their events for them. I'm on the headset. I'm backstage. I hear everything. I see everything. And I see what's being delivered out front, but I also hear what's going on, and I see what's being delivered out the back. And a lot of times, it isn't the same thing. So what I like about your organisation is it is always the same thing. And that is the brand, the purity of the brand. Keep my dream alive. Change people's lives. That is why the brand works. And that's why in came to Japan was a success as well. Dale Carnegie was actually in Japan 3 times. Came here twice in 1939. He was a guest of the Japanese government. And he travelled from Japan through to Korea and up into China and came back again and then went back to the States. And he came back in 1953. When he was here in 1939, he visited a number of places. And he went to Gifu. And you might know that in Gifu they have a very famous cormorant fishing festival. It's quite a tourist attraction. It was a tourist attraction then. It's a tourist attraction now. And he stayed at the Nagara-gawa Hotel in Gifu. And there was a gentleman working there by the name of Mochizuki. And he was just working in the hotel. And he was given a book. He was actually given this book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Now, 39, right? A couple of years later, Mochizuki's in a uniform. I don't quite know where he was. But interestingly, he said, I had that book with me all through the war. Because it meant so much to me that here was a guy who could see beyond statesmen and diplomats to a different world where people could get on. He was conscripted into the army, he didn't have a choice, but he saw a different world. And after the war in '52, he went to the States and he studied hotel management. He wound up in the Hilton Hotel Group. And he noticed, wow, these Hilton people are really good with people. They're fantastic with the staff. They're great with the guests. And they're really good in presentation skills. How's this happening? And they said, well, we did the Dale Carnegie course. So he took it in English. And he was amazed. He thought, wow, this is incredible. So he comes back to Japan in '59. And he's thinking, you know, I've got to bring this to Japan. We've got to help people here in Japan too. Rebuild the country, you know, it's after the war. And it took him a little while to organise that, but finally he did organise it. And in 1963, the first class was launched. The licence was given in '62, but the first class was January 1963. There's an article from the Japan Times. Actually, the article is in 1964, but it's referring to 1963. And then there's another article here in '67, and I like this because it's talking about Father Ballon from Sophia University, who was teaching management in those days. And when I came here in 1979, first time in Japan, one of my teachers was Father Ballon. And I did a master's degree eventually at Georgie, and he was one of the professors. He's still there, so I felt, oh, I'm connected a little bit here. And then here we have this great photograph in 1970. That's Mr. Mochizuki there in the middle holding the sign. And Fumi, his wife, is sitting next to him. She was also involved in the business. And a lot of the gentlemen who were in this photograph were the presidents of gaishikei companies, foreign companies in Japan, such as Bank of America, such as Warner Brothers. And they spoke English. And they were very international. And they loved it. They thought, this is fantastic. Now, can you imagine, the president of Bank of America is your trainer? How phenomenal is that? That's brand. That is brand, because the delivery is everything. The person is everything. And so Mochizuki was a genius at getting these very elite people in Japanese society to become brand representatives for Dale Carnegie Training and also be the deliverers. Now, just the gentleman on the far right, your far right, just cutting off there a little bit, Mr. Yamamoto, he actually was a brilliant, brilliant student and was actually the guy to take over from Mochizuki, who very unfortunately, only a few months into it, passed away unexpectedly. And his wife had to take it over and continue. And then I took it over from her. But, you know, this group are very interesting. Here they are here. Many of the people in that first photograph in 1970 are now in their 70s and 80s and still part of the Dale Carnegie family, because it is still a family feel to it. It's a mission. It's it's a cause, it's not a cult or a religion, but it's dynamic, and you see the change, you see the helping of people. It gets into people's systems, they still want to stay a part of it. And so we had a function last year, and we had a lot of people come. Warren Buffett, of course, is an icon in the Western culture. There are a few icons in the Japanese culture too. Mr. Atarashi, very well-known businessman, big fan of Dale Carnegie. And when he was President, Johnson & Johnson brought Dale Carnegie into there. Mr. Otani, Coca-Cola, we're still doing training for Coca-Cola. Big fan in his speeches and his writing. And Mr. Murakami, ex-chairman of Google, again, big fan. He writes about Dale Carnegie. He has this really old, archaic-looking golden book that you've got with him. He still reads it every day. It changed their lives. It changed their careers. That is the brand. It took them to a high level. They, amongst all their peers, went up. They went to the very top. And in fact, we're having a function on the 30th of November to celebrate the 100th year, and you're most welcome if you'd like to come. It's on our website. Murakami-san will be the guest speaker at that event because he feels he still wants to be part of the Dale Carnegie family. So, I mentioned 86 countries and 30 languages. Now, for a lot of products or services, well, this is made in America, isn't it? It won't work in Japan. Anyone ever heard that before? And people ask me, yeah, well, these are very American, I don't see, we're Japanese, this couldn't, it wouldn't work. But you look at your golden book, and you look at some of those principles, you tell me, which one of those principles does not apply to any culture? They are universal. They are all universal principles. This is the human dimension. And the fact that we do it in 30 languages tells us that it works across the world, 86 countries. But we do localize it because sometimes the curriculum as it's produced for an English-speaking audience in America, the examples don't quite suit for Japan. So we change it a little bit. But it's cosmetic in the change. The fundamental basis does not change. And this is Monica Mertz. Some of you may know Monica. She's the head for Asia for Toys R Us. She received a leadership award from Peter Handley, our global CEO there, earlier this year. And she is a great fan of Dale Carnegie. We do a lot of work for her. And this is another part of the brand build. There's only one leadership award given out globally in a year. And she got that award. So Peter Handel, the CEO, this man is like a nomad. He is constantly touring 86 countries around the world by sort of rotation, promoting Dale Carnegie, talking to clients, finding out what's happening, trying to keep that dream alive through his personal presence. And team engagement is one of the key areas we cover, and I hope that your teams look as engaged as some of these graduate teams here that we have, because this is the sort of effect it has on people. And leadership, obviously, is another key area. We don't do everything. We do team engagement, we do leadership, we look after communication, and this obviously is a very important part of. Distributed the little blue cards there, which are the 6 impact points of persuasion for you, where we teach people about communication skills, because be it a group like this or a small meeting or a one-on-one becomes important. Process improvement is another area we look at, and then sales and customer service. So that's the areas that Dale Carnegie focuses on. We don't do everything. If you want to learn about accounting, don't come to us. If you want to learn how to do Excel, don't come to us. But in those other areas, team engagement, leadership, communication, sales, customer service, etc. We focus only on those areas. All the soft skills, all the things where people are involved. And, we're not a rich organization like some of the big brands that you have in this room from time to time. So we have to find creative ways to get our message across. And this is in Japanese. It says it's free. It's a global, Jinsai Global Employee Seminar. It's restricted to HR people. There's one coming up on the 16th of this next month. And what we do there is, it's an actual class. We actually run a class for HR people so they can experience the training. Because it's very hard when you talk to HR people to say, well, it's great. It's got 100 years history. They go, well, so what? I've never done it. I don't know. So when they come and they do the training, they find, oh, this is the Dale Carnegie experience. This is different. This is differentiably different. And so this is a very important part of the brand. They experience the brand firsthand. We can't do taste testing like you do with product, but we can do experience testing. like this. And this is a public preview. We don't quite get 500 people like they did in Buenos Aires back in the day, unfortunately. But we do get, 20, 30 people come to our regular public previews to experience it, because you can't really easily describe how it changes people's lives unless you're actually in the class. And it only has relevancy in that moment that you're there. We have all our collateral again. We're trying to get that organised to make it very, very similar. We differentiate with the Dale Carnegie course on the top left to make it look different because it's the flagship course. We do advertising, mainly in English to chamber, different magazines like the British Chamber, the American Chamber, the European Chamber. Japanese magazines, very expensive. You're talking a lot of money. We try to do our best with the limited budgets we have. We do have a lot of gaishike, a lot of foreign companies as our clients, but we're not limited to that. We also are trying to move into the Japanese side. We do have a lot of Japanese clients, so it's about a 60-40 split of foreign to Japanese companies. And we are trying to work more in the PR area to try and penetrate in the Japanese language side of things a bit better. We use our site. This is the English site. We try and make that obviously something that works for us to make it easy to navigate, help people understand what we can do. We found this worked quite well, trade shows. Now, normally you don't think about trade shows perhaps for a training company like this, but I speak in Japanese. I speak for about an hour. It seems to work. It seems to be something that, again, we give people as part of the Dale Carnegie experience. So I'm doing that at different times. This is now, we're trying different things. Mareike convinced me to spend some money on a banner out here for the American Chamber to try and, again, brand awareness, trying to get people to think about what we do. The other big differentiator is in the coaching. The way we coach is quite different from most other training I've ever experienced. And so that, again, is not a very easy thing to describe. You have to really experience it. And that coaching is one of the core things that differentiate us from other companies. Because in the coaching, we're looking for breakthroughs and we're looking for self-discovery. Now, it's a very sad thing to say that training doesn't work. A bit ironic coming from a training company. But it doesn't work because people don't apply what they've learned. They get the training and then they don't use it. So companies are wasting time and money. So we found a couple of things. When the trainer tells you something, you don't own it. So Dale Carnegie discovered this 100 years ago. So our training is around a lot to do with self-discovery. We found that when you own the information, it's usually something very practical you'll use, and the learning is permanent learning. So you'll keep it forever. So that's a very high value part of our brand, to provide you something that's immediately usable and permanent in your memory. And the other thing is comfort zone. Problem with most training is that you go to the training, but you haven't changed. And you go back to your desk and you do what you always did. This is the problem. You do the same things in the same way, you get the same result. The trouble is, none of our bosses, or if we are the bosses, want last year's results. We want more. And we want more, faster, better, and costing less. So how do you do that? That change has risk attached to it. We all want to have the benefits of change. We just don't want to change ourselves. So we work a lot on helping people expand their comfort zone to embrace the risk of change, to adopt change, to get the higher performance. And that's not an easy thing. But if you look at a Dale Carnegie manual, it's lots of air. There's not a lot of heavy text like a textbook. There are no case studies particularly. But it's all experiential. It's self-discovery. It's got breakthroughs built into it, which is the brand. The delivery is the brand. I could pack up all of our manuals right now and ship it to all of our competitors and say, here's all our manuals, go for it. You can't go for it because the experience is the brand, and the way we train our trainers is the brand. And that sustainability of that training mechanism is the brand. So comfort zone expansion is a critical part of what we do. I'm going to go through briefly a couple of the principles that are in your golden books there to give you some flavour. Now this one is principle number 22. When you read it, you think, oh, that's, yeah, okay. begin with praise and honest appreciation, you know, like, so what? But think about this. When was the last time either you as the boss or your boss came up to you and started with praise and honest appreciation as opposed to, "Kay, where's my report? Where's my document I've been waiting for? What's happening with that customer? Where are the numbers?" Does this sound familiar to anybody? We've forgotten about the praise and honest appreciation part, where it might sound something like this. "Thank you very much for the work you did with that client in the meeting last week. I think that really made the meeting go well. I'm looking for the latest numbers for where we are in October. Are they ready yet?" Do you hear the difference? A little bit of praise first and then "where's my numbers?" as opposed to "where's my numbers?" It's a very simple thing, but to make that your default, it takes training, it takes skill to do that. You can read the book, but you actually need the training to make it your habit. But again, when you read it, it sounds simplistic, but you think about from now on, try that. When you're going to ask someone for something, begin with praise and honest appreciation at the start, and then get to what you want. Here's another one. Ask questions instead of giving direct orders. We own the world we create. The trouble is, most of our worlds are created for us. Do this, do that, and particularly in a country like Japan, where often people are looking for that type of direction. Don't ask me to think, tell me what to do. But most foreign companies are asking for, what should we do? What are your ideas? What could we do? What aren't we doing? The trouble is, if you're just giving orders, that's not going to come out. So Dale Carnegie discovered, if you want to have good human relations, instead of giving direct orders, ask the person, what do you think about this? How do you think this should be done? Have you seen this done anywhere before? Is this worked anywhere else you've seen in the company? And suddenly the person is empowered. We talk about empowerment, but we give them no empowerment because we're drilling them full of holes with orders. What he's talking about here is don't give direct orders. So when you're going to ask for something of a subordinate, ask it in an indirect way. They'll feel proud to give their idea. They'll feel valued to give their idea. They'll feel engaged to give their idea. And it will change their life, and it will change your life in terms of how you act as a leader. Here's another one. Make the other person happy about doing the thing you suggest. Often, we're not happy. I'm busy. And now you want something else? I'm already up to here with work, and you want this? Why would I be happy about this extra work? So we think about that. We're asking people to take on additional projects or do something fast or do something more. But why would they be happy about doing that? So how we approach the subject, the communication side of things, the skill we have, makes all the difference in getting the person to sign on. And again, if you think about it, you want to ask someone in your company, be it a peer or a subordinate, to help you with something. How can you do that in a way that they would want to do it? Because we know if they bring their passion and commitment to the task, they'll do it so much better. And they'll do it so much more independently as well. And this is a great one. You know, we asked before about step out of your comfort zone. But stepping out of your comfort zone has risks because you're doing something you're not necessarily good at, and you're probably doing it for the first time, so you're bound to make mistakes. But what happens when they make a mistake? We jump all over them. Oh, you missed this. This was wrong. Oh, that's an error. Wow, that's going to screw up the company's books for the month, or we're going to lose money on that project. We jump all over them, and then we ask them to step out again. Well, they don't step out again. They're smart. They say, hey, comfort zone's a good place to be. Don't go outside of here. So what Dale Carnegie said was, instead of thinking about jumping on people with criticism and mistake, can you let them see there's been a mistake if they're not aware of it, or just talk about it indirectly so you don't break the relationship with the person. And this is what he was on about. How to win friends. How to make the people who work for you friends in the sense that you're very close in the relationship. The trust is very high. And so think about, if you do see a mistake, how can I reference this mistake in a way that won't destroy the relationship or demotivate that person, which is often what happens. So we have How many minutes for questions would you say, Kay? We're at 9 o'clock.
15,
We have
20 minutes we have.
15 minutes for questions. Okay, great. Who has the first question? Yeah, please, Sam.
Thanks for the presentation, Greg. Very interesting. I was just wondering, would your course work for every person in every industry?
If I think about what we cover now, it is every industry. If I look across the broad spectrum, it's everything. There doesn't seem to be any reason for any particular company to not need the training, as long as they've got probably more than one person. You know, there's an old saying in English, all your problems in life, walk on two legs and talk back. You know, so it's that sort of issue. Well, if you've got anything's got to deal with people, you're probably going to need the training. When I think about the people who do the course, they're often people who have got to a stage where they need cooperation. They might be actually elevated into a management position, or they may require project cooperation from their peers and they're not getting it. Or they may have actually moved up the organisation and now have quite a bit of responsibility, but not have the skill set to really make that work for them. And particularly in Japan, you've had a lot of tough love as the management technique in this country. You know, a lot of scolding and being very harsh. It's a bit reminiscent of the West. You know, after the war, it was a military management system that was brought into industry, which was very hierarchical, top-down, very direct, which the West has basically given up on. But in Japan, in some pockets, still here. So there's always that issue that they get to a certain point and they realise, this isn't working. Or you might get the younger generation, their subordinates, and it's definitely not working because they're not copying it. I mean, you never heard of Dai Ni Shinsotsu until about 5-6 years ago. The second graduates to come into your company, they've already been working for another company 3-4 years, quit after you've invested all the money, they're starting to make you some money, and they go to a rival. And that's because they don't like their manager, and their manager is often somebody much older who's not very skillful in those soft skills. So it does have an impact. So the answer to your question basically is, no, we don't see that. We don't see that at all. What we do see, though, strangely enough, is we're getting a lot of requests from companies that train their top leadership, guys in their 50s and 60s, which is a bit sort of counterintuitive. But what's happened is, after the bubble, companies were unable to invest for a very long time. Who thought this would last more than 20 years, you know? Who would have imagined in 1990 that we'd be here in 2012 saying, hey, we're still going with this? So they were sort of putting off the investment in educating these guys. And over 20 years, they were 30, now they're 50. They were 35, now they're 55. They were 40, now they're 60. No investment. They haven't encountered or confronted a new management idea in 20 years. And now they're at a point in the company where they're a leverage point to take the company to another level. And the company's realised they don't have it anymore. They've run OJT, on-the-job training, absolutely dry. Like nothing left, you know. And now it's time to reinvest. So that's something we are finding. Where's the next question? Yeah, Will, please. We've got the mics coming your way.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. It was extremely interesting. There's massive restructuring going on, especially in companies like Sony, Panasonic, Sharp, cutting people by tens of thousands. And those who I've talked to who were on the receiving end of that say that they get absolutely no second life coaching or support. It's just, goodbye, maybe a few months' salary. And a lot of them are people leaving Sony now going to Samsung, who pay better, and they want Sony's know-how. And to me, this is such a shame, because I think that if the company would invest, as you're saying, a little bit more in their communication skills, or even just giving them a second chance, say sponsoring your course, or give them a nice, launch onto their next career, I think they would have a lot more loyalty. And I'm just wondering is that another market that you're approaching, the people who are being restructured, or the companies that are letting go of people?
Yes and no. We're actually finding those people coming into our courses in reality. We're not getting a type of company-directed people to us yet, to be honest. But what we do find, though, is that the people who come realise they've got to have a career change, start a new life. They want to re-establish themselves and build their confidence and build their skill sets with people to go to the next level. So it is an issue for companies, I think, on how they treat their people and how they communicate with their people. And you're right, a lot of it is very dry, actually, in a way. But you think about why are those companies in trouble in the first place? And it comes back to some of those principles. If it's giving orders, if it's not beginning with honest praise and appreciation, if it's criticising your mistakes, you're killing the innovation component of companies. You're not getting ownership of the things that are possible. You're not changing anyone's life for the good, actually. And so the long consequence of that over many generations through on-the-job training, where I often say, for me, on-the-job training in these situations seems like the clueless passing on to the next generation. Cluelessness. This is not seeming to be, oh, there we go. Must be time up. Cluelessness is being passed on. It makes no sense. They've missed the investment stage, I think, to help people actually work at the next level. One of the other things, too, I find in Japan is Japanese society is very hard to get innovation. Not because Japanese people aren't creative, but you're all too tired. You're all staying up way too late watching crappy Japanese variety shows on TV. And you're getting up late, and you're getting on the same crowded train with everybody else, being crushed, packed off to the office, arrive at 9, and then you're tired already by the time you get there. How can you be creative when you're tired and exhausted by the time you get to work? And then when you get there and your boss is not very helpful because they're not skilled in those people's skill sets. So if you think about it, the combination of things over a long period of time, it's not going to be a great one for innovation. I think we've got to think about some of these simple things again, come back to the roots. Fresh, invigorated people are more likely to have innovative ideas than people who are basically sleepy and tired and exhausted from just getting to work. So part of that, I think, is the culture in the companies haven't adopted these things fully yet.
Just one quick remark there. The president of Sharp, on the occasion when he cut 5,000 people, did you read about what he said?
No.
The media asked him, and he said, well, we're removing the pus from the organization.
Ah, very good.
The pus.
Very good.
Umio das.
Very
That's
good.
kicked it.
Very good.
It's squeezing the pus out of the
Yeah.
That's good.
Sensitive sort of
Yes.
guy, really. Yeah. And you can imagine those who remain. What do you think they're thinking? The ones who didn't get cut this time, what do you think they're thinking?
Maybe I'm next.
I might be part of the residue pus that's going to get squeezed out in the next round of cuts. And how's my motivation about that? So, was that a great comment? Probably not a great comment. I think he could have begun with praise and honest appreciation for the efforts of the team today and encouraged them to rally forth and take a new career step and thank you for what you've done and we'll try and survive and maybe you can come back.
22.
Yeah, that's right. Principle number 22. And sorry, you had a question.
Thank you, that was terrific. You said in the beginning that the brand lives in the person, and I guess that's so important when you're trying to keep the brand going all these years after Dale's gone. So how do you find the right people to take the brand forward? And do you ever have trouble, you think you've got the right person, you find out they're not? How do you deal with that?
Yes, we do have this issue because the brand is the delivery in that moment. Only for that moment that you're in the classroom. And when that classroom stops, the brand is gone, you're gone, it stops right there. It's a very effervescent thing we're talking about. It's not like I got a nice pack there of Starbucks coffee before, thank you very much. It lasts. I can take that home, I can show it to my family. I can stick it in the cupboard and have it over a period of time. But our training, it stops at the time the training finishes and then it's gone. So it's effervescent. It's intangible in a way. So the brand is rebuilt and reborn every time we deliver. So how do you control that? We have two lots of trainers. We have "it changed my life" trainers. We have "wow, this was fantastic for my career. Wow, I'm now fantastically better capable of dealing with people. And by the way, Warren Buffett, I would throw up with nerves before I could talk. I couldn't give them my name. I was going through so much trauma, and now I can't shut up." That overcoming that nervousness, being able to present in front of people, all of those skills, that's tremendous. So those people, they want more. They do the course and they go, "Hey, this is good." And the only way they can get more of it is to teach it. Exactly what he said. "I went back to Omaha and I started to teach because I didn't want to lose it." That's the key, you see. So there are people like that, and they are our, what we call avocational trainers. They'll train on weekends or in the evenings, keeping their job. Just like the early president of Bank of America. He didn't give up his day job. He was still the president of Bank of America and came and trained Dale Carnegie at nights and on weekends. Then there's another group. These are professionals. They've been trainers in their companies, now they've gone out on their own, or they've been HR people who've gone out on their own and they're running their little training company. They've got something happening there. They've read the book. They thought, "this is pretty good." They've come across Dale Carnegie. They've decided, "I'd like to teach this." And they can teach from 9 to 5 during the day, in-house courses. But whether you're an avocational trainer or whether you're a professional trainer, you have to go through exactly the same 250 hours of certification to become a Dale Carnegie trainer. And you have to recertify every year. And there are a couple of graduates in the room, Peter and Tron, are graduates of the courses. They know that at the end of every course, they're filling out a sheet on how the training was. It's got a number of questions. That all goes back to the States. It goes in a machine, scans it, automatically calculates the scores, and comes out with a TQI, Total Quality Index. And so we can compare, and we do compare, that course taught all around the world with that trainer's score. And so they're watching these scores all the time. So if they see a particular trainer is getting a low score, you're getting a phone call from America, from the Carnegie University. What's happening with, Greg's story?
But thank you first for all your...
when they're talking to the president, they're not doing much love there. You know, so what's happening with the score? But when we talk to the trainer, we're passing on the love. But it is a tough system. In fact, I was saying before to Trump, it's frustrating. You can get, because there's different ways of scoring it. You can overall satisfaction rating, 97, 98%. You think, hey, this is great. But then when you go to the TQI score, which is only certain questions, you're getting like 60%. You think, how hard is this? But it is a very good system, and it does allow us to go. And also, we vet people through the system. So if we don't think they're the right person. Now, I did a training session this morning teaching successful public speaking live online with my co-trainer who is in New York, and I'm in Tokyo, and our participants are in New Zealand. We're doing it over the internet. And one of the things we were talking about there, public speaking, was to be a good person skilled in speaking. And that's the answer. We want them to be good people skilled in training. We don't want con men and women. We don't want fake. We want natural, genuine people who are good people, because they are the brand. Now, we do get people who come in for different reasons who are thinking maybe it's the money, maybe it's the status, the prestige, whatever it might be, and they basically don't get taken through. There was one particular gentleman, I observed him as a coach, I was watching him through the course, and I felt there was something not quite in the Dale Carnegie family spirit about this gentleman, so we had a one-on-one interview, and basically he dropped out because he was not going to become an example of the brand for us. He didn't have the right makeup, personality-wise, because, the trainers in the room, they know the trainer is everything. The trainer is everything. What you don't want is a great brand when it's this person, and it's not a great brand when it's that person. It's got to be a great brand for every person. To have Any business where you've got that type of sustainability and credibility and consistency is extremely tough. Every brand suffers from that. But in our business, it's the moment. It's the moment of the delivery where the brand is decided and the person has to be at that level every time. And that's not easy to do. So the training component is very, very important. And we actually on Sunday spent a whole day with our trainers, trainer meeting, practicing with ourselves, filming ourselves, giving some praise and positive reinforcement as we were doing it with each other. Again, because if we don't do that, we won't be operating at that level. And one of the reasons I enjoy public speaking, you've got blue cards there on how to be persuasive, is because I have to be up here and put myself under the pressure of delivering, because I teach this in communication school myself. So I have to constantly push myself. And this is reasonably easy for me today because it's English, and it's the FCC, and I'm a member, and you're all wonderful, and you came out on a rainy night, so it's all plus, plus, plus. But I do it in Japanese, where it's not my native language. My wife says, did you skip the class on passive tense or something? You never use it. What happened there? And I think she's right. I don't know what happened with passive tense. I must have been sleeping in those classes. I just don't seem to have it. Don't manage passive tense. I've got to go back and relearn it. But I push myself because I know that if I'm going to have credibility with an audience or with a team I'm teaching, I have to have that fear and experience myself and keep pushing myself, keep stretching myself, get out of my comfort zone. In fact, when I was doing the training on Sunday, they pushed me right out of my comfort zone. They asked me to do things in the presentations training, which really I was not used to doing, to make me get out of my comfort zone because I was too comfortable in presenter mode. So again, it's this type of thing. I think we have time for one more question.
Yes.
Is that okay? Last question. Who has the last question? Yeah, please. Marika. Now, I have to tell you, Marika is a super saleswoman. I resisted that banner ad for a long time because I didn't think we had enough money to sustain it, but she talked me into it, I tell you. She's a super saleswoman. She did a great job.
Thank you for the compliments. And also thank you for the presentation. So, this looks really interesting. Can you tell us a little bit more?
Okay, now I made it very simple because it's designed to fit in your wallet. It's Meiji size. You stick it in your wallet. You just stand up and give a presentation, be it in the company or external. Before that, just have a quick look at those 6 points. And you may or may not have noticed it, but I'm making eye contact with each of you over the course of my presentation. And I'm trying to get about 6 seconds with you. And that's so it's engaging. If I have longer than 6 seconds, it starts to become intrusive and uncomfortable, and it's like, why is that guy staring at me? So 6 seconds is about right. But if it's 2 or 3 seconds, it's sort of fake politician eye contact, skipping, I'm making eye contact, but I'm actually not looking at anyone. And the 6 sectors is the baseball diamond. If you think about right field, centre field, left field, infield, outfield, you're able to pick up everybody. It's not like I just talk to the people in the front row and you guys at the back are ignored. Or I'm sure you've seen this. People will talk to half of the room and ignore this half. So what it's teaching is to get everybody involved, be it the very front row or the very back row, so they feel they're part of the evening. And that's where that comes in. And then your face. Your face. Now I had 105 slides tonight. 105, that's enormous. But a lot of them are going 1 second intervals, right? So you're just pumping through slides. But I'm standing on this side of the screen because we read left or right. I want you to look at my face, and then I want you to look at what's written on the screen. So I'm trying to be animated in my face so you look at me. I am the presentation. I am the message. This is just backup as opposed to the other way around. And voice, of course, the modulation. Now, Japanese people have a bit of disadvantage because when I first got to Japan, went to Jochi learning Japanese, watashi wa eki ni ikimasu. And it says, no. Flatto. You got to be flat. Watashi wa eki ni ikimasu. You get it flat. So that's a guaranteed formula for putting the whole audience to sleep. Okay, which in Japan, you never turn the lights out, right? You know that? You never turn the lights out. With that monotone voice and lights out, you've lost everybody. So it's a tough audience in Japan. But what you can do, even if you haven't got the rise in intonation so much like we have in English or other languages, is speed. You can make it very quick. You can slow it right down. You can make it powerful. Make it soft. So you can get variation in the voice, so you don't put people to sleep. And gestures, I find in Japan there's either no gestures or it's constant gesture. But what you want is turn it on, turn it off. And about 10 to 15 seconds tends to work. You'll notice I do a lot of gesturing, but I don't leave it there. It's on, it's off. It's on, it's off. For variety. As soon as I leave my gestures like that, after about 10 to 15 seconds, that gesture is dead as an emphasis point, and it just becomes damn annoying. Right? And so it's no good leaving it, you've got to turn it off. And then I think we talk about ma, the pause. When you have a gap, it highlights what goes before, and it'll highlight what's going to come. We need time to think. We need time to think. So the gap gives you that. And the last one there, I think, is posture. You know, this just doesn't look credible as a posture. Ladies, I'm a professional. Maybe not. You know, you can't stand like this as a lady and look professional. You know, it doesn't work. Well, this is the other one for ladies. It's the one hip out, right? So, but you will see it. And we're teaching people presentation skills, and you tell them this stuff, and you get them to get up there and do a self-introduction, and the guys are like this, and they're like this, you know, they're like this, they're all over the place. You just stand as if you just dropped like that, naturally. Stand tall, stand straight, don't even think about your hands. If you're Australian, I think I'm the only Australian in the room, this is the Australian. One hand in the pocket. And if you're really nervous because you don't do the hand for the other one in the pocket as well, so you got stereo, and you'll see corporate chiefs, you know, running around, captains of industry who don't know where to put their hands in the pocket. This is a typical Aussie style, right? And because they don't know what to do with their hands. Hands, forget about the hands. If you're working this, no one looks at your hands. No one cares. So there are this quick one little lesson point on those 6 things and what they mean. I think I got them all, did I? Mike, I didn't go left any off? I did, very good. I wrote that thing, so I hope I didn't remember. I remember them all. But again, they're very simple little things, but it just makes such a difference in how you're seen and how credible you are in the presentation mode compared to if you don't do them. And now that you have that awareness, guaranteed, next time you go to a presentation, be it inside the company, a small meeting, or a larger meeting, or even a big event, watch for it. Your awareness will be right through the roof now. You go, oh, yeah, look at that. Not doing that. I got that. And then make sure you're doing it when you do it. I talked about a 100-year-old brand. I talked about the brand is in the moment of delivery. It is all about people. All of that 105-slide presentation was basically with people's faces. Dale Carnegie was an icon, but he had a dream. He could see it was changing people's lives. The richest man in the world at different times, depending on the share market, Warren Buffett, says, it changed my life. Changed all of our lives. As trainers, we have a big obligation to help everyone. Please, keep the dream alive. You can read the book, you can come to the training, you can use the golden book at your leisure. Use these principles because they work. Thank you very much.
Frankly speaking, I didn't have much of happy moments of being praised through my entire life. So,
correct.
Yeah, this is a great revelation this evening. And since I was not a trained engineer, I think I'm not hopeless. I hope. But anyways, Dr. Story, great content, great insights, great delivery. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Please give a big hand to Dr. Story.
Thank you for joining the Leadership Japan podcast. Remember, to access your Dale Carnegie Training free white papers, guidebooks, training videos, blogs, course information, plus much more, then go to japan.dalecarnegie.com.